Imagine you're sitting in a meeting, and there's that one person. You know exactly who I'm talking about. They interrupt everyone, always think they're the smartest in the room, never listen, and wait for their turn to talk. And every single time they open their mouth, something inside you just tightens. Your jaw clenches. Your patience evaporates. You think to yourself, why does this person bother me so much? Why can't they just be normal? Now here's the question that's going to change how you see every annoying person in your life from this moment forward. What if that person isn't your problem? What if they're actually your mirror? Stay with me here, because what I'm about to share with you is one of the most uncomfortable and most powerful ideas in all of psychology. And once you understand it, you will never look at an irritating person the same way again. We spend so much of our mental energy on other people, on their flaws, on their habits, on the way they chew their food, or the way they always have to be right, or the way they never take responsibility for anything. We replay their behavior in our heads. We vent to our friends about them. We lie awake at night thinking about something they said 3 weeks ago. And the whole time, we're convinced that the problem is out there. In them, not in us. But psychology keeps telling us something very different. And the more you look into it, the harder it is to ignore. There's a concept called projection. It's one of the most well-documented and least talked about mechanisms of the human mind. And the basic idea is this. The things that trigger us the most in other people are often the things we can't accept in ourselves. We don't see them clearly. We see them through a lens. And that lens is made up of everything we've pushed down, suppressed, denied, or refused to look at inside ourselves. So when someone else displays a trait that you've been taught is bad, or weak, or shameful, and you carry a hidden version of that same trait somewhere inside you, it hits different. It doesn't just mildly annoy you. It enrages you. It gets under your skin in a way that nothing else does. And you have no idea why. That's the mirror effect. Let's make this real. Think about the person who drives you absolutely crazy because they're so arrogant. They walk around like they own the place. They never admit they're wrong. They talk about themselves constantly, and you genuinely cannot stand it. Now here's the uncomfortable question. Have you ever, even for a moment, wanted to feel that confident? Have you ever secretly wished you could own a room like that? Is there a part of you that's afraid of coming across as too much, too loud, too full of yourself? So you've spent your whole life making yourself smaller? And now, when you see someone doing the exact opposite, something in you explodes? Or think about the person who annoys you because they're too passive. They never stand up for themselves. They go along with everything. They have no backbone, and it drives you insane. But wait, how good are you at setting boundaries? How often do you say yes when you mean no? How many times have you swallowed your opinion to keep the peace? Is it possible that what you're seeing in them is a reflection of a part of you that you hate in yourself? This isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about saying you're just as bad as the people who hurt you. This is about something much more interesting and much more useful. This is about the fact that our emotional reactions are data. They're information. They're pointing at something. And when we learn to read that information rather than just reacting to it, everything changes. Carl Jung called this the shadow. Every single one of us has a shadow, a collection of parts of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or buried. Maybe because our parents told us those parts were bad. Maybe because we got hurt when we showed them. Maybe because society told us they weren't acceptable. So we pushed them underground. And we thought that was the end of it. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It just shows up somewhere else. It projects. It casts itself onto the people around us. And then we react to them as if they're the problem, when really we're reacting to ourselves. Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, if you never look at your shadow, you'll spend your whole life being bothered by other people and never understanding why. You'll move from relationship to relationship, job to job, city to city, and the same types of people will keep showing up. Different faces, same energy. Because the mirror travels with you. Now let's talk about the flip side of this, because the mirror effect doesn't only work with negative traits. Sometimes the people who annoy us are actually showing us something we deeply want but feel we can't have. You know the person who annoys you because they're so free-spirited? They drop everything and go traveling. They don't have a 5-year plan. They live in the moment. And something about it makes you uncomfortable. You judge them. You call them irresponsible. You say they're just running away from real life. But is it possible that deep down you're jealous? That you've spent so long being responsible, being structured, doing everything right, that watching someone live so freely feels like a personal insult? Because they're doing what a part of you is terrified to do? This is one of the ways the mirror works. It shows us our unlived lives. The versions of ourselves we killed off because they felt too risky, too selfish, or too impossible. And when we see someone else living them out loud, it stings. The people who irritate us are often the ones doing something we've forbidden ourselves to do. And instead of recognizing that longing inside us, we turn it into judgment. We make them the villain. We tell ourselves we're better than that. And the longing goes deeper underground. Here's where it gets really interesting. When we understand the mirror effect, we stop losing our power to other people. Think about how much energy you've spent being angry at someone. How much mental real estate have they taken up? How many conversations have you rehearsed in your head? How many times have you told the story of what they did to anyone who would listen? That's not just exhausting. That's energy that isn't going toward your own life, your own goals, your own growth. Every moment you spend obsessing about someone else's flaws is a moment you could be spending understanding yourself. And here's the hard truth. The people who trigger us the most are often the people we have the most to learn from. Not because they're wise, not because they're good teachers, but because the intensity of our reaction to them is a signal, a flashing light, a message from the unconscious saying, look here, there's something here that needs your attention. So how do you actually work with this? How do you use the mirror effect in real life? The first step is to stop in the middle of the reaction. When you feel that familiar tightening, that surge of irritation, that urge to vent or complain or roll your eyes, pause just for a second. Don't try to fix the feeling. Just notice it. Then ask yourself, what specifically is bothering me about this person? Get really precise. Not just they're annoying. What is the exact behavior? What is the exact quality? Name it as clearly as you can. Then ask the harder question. Is there any version of this in me? Not necessarily the same intensity, not necessarily the same expression, but some version. Have I ever done this? Have I ever wanted to? Am I afraid of this? Do I secretly admire this, even though I'd never admit it? You don't have to answer out loud. You don't have to share this with anyone. This is just between you and yourself. But be honest, really honest, because the mirror only works if you're willing to look at it. The next step is curiosity. Get curious about the person instead of just reacting to them. Why might someone behave this way? What would make a person become this? What are they protecting? What are they afraid of? What pain is underneath that behavior? This doesn't mean you excuse everything or allow people to treat you badly. Boundaries are still real, but curiosity creates distance between you and the trigger. And in that distance, you get to choose how you respond instead of just reacting automatically. Then comes the part that most people skip, looking at the rejected part of yourself. If this person is triggering you because of something you've buried in your own shadow, the work is to bring that thing back into the light. Not to unleash it without control, but to acknowledge it. To say, this part of me exists. I've been pretending it doesn't. What does it need from me? Maybe you've suppressed your anger for so long that now other people's anger terrifies and enrages you. The work isn't to become an angry person. The work is to let yourself feel your own anger healthily. To stop abandoning yourself every time something inside you rises. Maybe you've suppressed your need for attention so thoroughly that now, when someone openly seeks it, you can't stand them. The work is to ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to be seen? What would happen if you took up a little more space? The shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be integrated. It wants to come home. And when you let it, when you stop fighting the parts of yourself you've rejected, something surprising happens. The people who used to drive you crazy no longer have the same effect. The trigger loses its charge, because the mirror no longer has anything to reflect that you're not willing to see. This doesn't happen overnight. This is real work. It requires honesty and courage. Because looking in the mirror, a real mirror, not the bathroom kind, is one of the most uncomfortable things a human being can do. It's much easier to keep blaming other people. And there will always be people who choose that. People who spend their whole lives convinced that all their problems are someone else's fault. That if only the people around them would change, they'd finally be okay. And maybe some of those people will always be in your life in some form, but you don't have to be one of them. The moment you start using irritation as information instead of as a verdict on other people, you step into a completely different relationship with the world. You start seeing your triggers as teachers, your reactions as maps. Other people are mirrors who are, often without meaning to and without knowing it, showing you exactly where your growth is waiting. Think about the people who have bothered you the most in your life, the ones who really got to you, the ones you still think about sometimes. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because there's a reason those specific people had that specific effect on you. Out of all the people in the world, these particular ones found the exact button to push. That's not random. That's the mirror doing its work. What if instead of wishing those people had never entered your life, you got curious about what they showed you? What if the colleague who drove you insane actually helped you see how much you'd been suppressing your own ambition? What if the friend who betrayed you revealed how little you'd been valuing yourself? What if the parent who drove you crazy was reflecting a pattern you'd inherited and never examined? This reframe doesn't let anyone off the hook for genuine harm. It doesn't mean everything that was done to you is okay. Pain is real. Damage is real. Some people behave in genuinely destructive ways. But even in those cases, especially in those cases, the question of what this brought up in you, what it touched, what it revealed, is worth asking because that's where your liberation lies. There's an old idea in many spiritual traditions that the people who challenge us most are our greatest teachers, not our easiest relationships, not the people who are nice to us, agree with us, and make us feel comfortable. The difficult ones, the ones who scratch at us, who reveal our edges, who show us where we're still raw. Psychology, in its own language, is saying the same thing. The people who trigger you the most are the ones worth paying the closest attention to. Not to obsess over them, not to let them live rent-free in your head, but to use the intensity of your reaction as a compass pointing inward. Because the goal of all of this, the mirror, the shadow, the projection, the goal isn't to fix other people. It was never about other people. The goal is to know yourself more deeply, to free yourself from patterns that are running on autopilot, to stop being hijacked by triggers you don't understand, to get back the energy you've been bleeding out in the direction of other people's behavior. That's the real gift that annoying people give you, not the lessons they intend to teach, not the wisdom they've chosen to share, but the involuntary, uncomfortable, brutally honest reflection of the parts of yourself you most need to see. So the next time someone gets under your skin, and they will, because you're human, try something different. Instead of immediately going to frustration or judgment or the urge to vent, take a breath and ask, what is this showing me? What is alive in me right now that needs to be looked at? You might not get an answer right away. The shadow doesn't always reveal itself instantly, but the habit of asking the question changes something. It shifts you from victim to investigator, from powerless to curious, from reacting to learning. And over time, something remarkable happens. You start to feel less at the mercy of other people, less triggered, less drained. Not because people stop being annoying, they won't, but because you've changed your relationship with the trigger. You've taken back your energy. You've turned irritation into insight. The mirror is always there. The question is whether you're willing to look at what it's showing you. So here's what I want to know from you. Think about the one person in your life who has irritated or triggered you the most. Not to blame them, not to analyze them, but to look inward. What quality in them bothers you the most? And honestly, is there any version of that quality somewhere in you? Drop it in the comments. No judgment here, because the more honestly we can talk about this stuff, the more we all grow.